Now this is a good opportunity to explain another feature of these brakes. And that feature I'm talking about refers to little set screws down below here on the arms that when you screw them in will move the brake arm out, will actually increase the spring. And when you back these screws out, will decrease the spring. The brake arms will come in a little bit. Now when I depress the levers, you're going to see a difference in the way these two pull away from the rim. When I squeeze the levers, this arm here is pulling away from the rim fine. The spring is nice and strong. This arm here, the spring is a little weaker. It's not coming away from the rim the way I'd like it to. Now I'm going to show you what that spring does off the bike with a prop, and we'll go to that. Here is a similar V-brake, and this is the same arm as this one. Now with this V-brake, here's the set screw that I was talking about. And when you screw that set screw in, it actually strengthens the spring. And by strengthening that, that arm is going to want to come out more. When you back that screw out, it'll loosen the spring and make it weaker. So that arm will kind of sit in more. And that's the set screw that I was referring to on the back brakes. You want to adjust those springs to get even pull on both arms so that they come away from the rim the same distance and they both clear. So I'm going to be adjusting the set screw down here on this brake lever, and while I'm doing that I'm going to depress the levers so that you can see the difference that it makes on the way these brake pads pull away from the rim. So I'm going to set my screwdriver in, and again I'm going to back the screw out to make the spring weaker. So while I'm doing that, first we see the brake arms, see how they're not pulling correctly. And then as I back that screw out and depress those arms, you'll slowly see the arms start to pull away uniformly. Just like that. Now we've got a uniform distance. They're both responding correctly and equally. And that means the spring power is about accurate. On this next step, we're going to talk about brake alignment and having the brake pad exactly where it needs to be on the rim, not having it too high or too low. And I'm going to show you examples of what could happen. One would be the brake pad being too high, just above the surface of the rim a little bit. In cases like that where you ride on that for a while, the brake pad, every time you apply the brake, will cut into your tire. So not only will your brakes not work as well as they should be, but you're eventually going to wear a nice cut into the sidewall of your tire, causing a blowout and causing a lot of damage. The next thing you don't want to do is you don't want to have your pad too low, where it comes down and makes a little lip underneath the rim. Over time, this will not only, again, compromise your brake power, but over time it will wear a groove in the pad, which will start to get stuck under the rim, and they won't spring back anymore. They'll kind of catch all the time. You also want to make sure that the pad is parallel to the rim. You don't want to have crooked pad, so the top is hitting. This can happen also by removing the wheel to change a flat. Sometimes you will jam the wheel back in, kicking that pad up a little bit. So always check that and make sure that that pad is nice and parallel to the rim. And top edge of the pad should be at least 2 millimeters from the top edge of the rim. So you've got it nice and centered, just like that. And on the next step, we'll talk about towing in the pad so you don't have squeaky brakes, and also getting the right surface area. In this step, I'm going to show you angles that are good and angles that are bad. This angle you're looking at right now, where the bottom of the pad is hitting on the rim first, is a bad angle. And again, you're not going to get proper braking. And if you do it the other way, with the top of the pad hitting, Again, you're losing some braking, and it's just not going to be not going to wear in properly. The right way is you want the pad to come into the rim directly, with the front hitting first, and that's called a toe-in, and that's something I'll show you in the next step. In this step, I'm going to explain why you want to toe a pad in and why you don't want it. Instinct will always tell us to have that pad coming straight in to be accurate. But in this case, you want to have the front of the pad hitting first, because there's always a little bit of movement in a brake caliper. And when that front hits first, oftentimes it'll quiet the rim down, so you won't have squealing, and it'll press the rest of the pad in to follow. It's better braking power, and it will, again, quiet the rim down. So if you're bringing your bike in for squeaky brakes all the time, one of the things you need to look at is that toe-in. So the front of the pad will always hit first, and then the back will follow. Well, that concludes today's lesson on linear pull brakes. You've learned how to adjust them, you've learned how to install them, you've learned how to run a cable, and most importantly, you've learned how to be more self-sufficient and rely on yourself more to keep your bike maintained. So go out, have a good time. You have brakes now. And again, if you have any questions we got in this lesson, you can visit my website, percycycles.com, and ask me personally.